Hello there, thrill seekers. I am back from Florida, and look, I have a hat to prove it. Did you miss me? No, you didn't miss me because I cheated and put up 3 videos that I'd recorded earlier, I don't know, months ago, just to fill in gaps if I happen to be gone, and I put those up last week, so that's what you saw. Anyway, now I'm back for real, and I wanted to talk to you about a principle in Dogen's writings which is expressed usually in the 4 character phrase shusho ito, or sometimes another 4 character phrase shusho ichinyo. And this means practice and experience are one and the same. Let me take off. Should I take off the hat or no? Let's leave it on. I think it's good. Anyway, it means practice and experience are one and the same. The practice is the practice of Zazen. The experience is generally understood to be this idea of enlightenment or satori or kensho or some kind of state of realization. The character used for experience is sho. So I'll put it on the screen, I hope. This is often translated as meaning, let's see, evidence, proof, or certificate. And the one piece of stuff that I had on my possession, in my possession for years and years, in which I saw this a lot, was Gaikokujin Shomeisho, which means a foreigner identification card. And proof of, anyway, in that case the show means proof, so this card was like a driver's license sort of, but it was to show that you were legally in Japan as a foreign person residing in Japan legally. So show is like a certificate or something like that, but in Zen parlance this is used in a different way, which it means enlightenment or something. Now, the place which this shows up is in the first place it shows up in Shobo Genzo is in Book 1 in Bendoa. The source I said listed this as question number 8 in Bendoa. Actually, I don't know if it's question number 8 or question number 7. It kind of depends on who's numbering the questions. Anyway, as some of you have read my book, it came from Beyond Zen. Don't Be a Jerk. If you've read Don't Be a Jerk, I called this Dogen's Zazen Q&A or something like that because the first part of it is sort of a biography, an autobiography of Dogen, and then the second part of it is a bunch of questions and answers, probably from one of his students, probably from Eijo, some people think. He doesn't identify who asks the questions, but they are there and listed. And anyway, here's the question. Someone asks, in regard to this practice of Zazen, a person who has not yet experienced and understood the Buddha Dharma, that is, a person who's been enlightened, that's what we're talking about, may be able to acquire that experience by pursuing the truth in Zazen. So you do the Zazen and then you acquire this truth. But what can a person who has already clarified the Buddha's right Dharma expect to gain from Zazen? What can you expect to gain from Zazen, especially if you already know it all? Okay, here's the answer. Dogen says, we do not tell our dreams before a fool, and it is difficult to put oars into the hands of a mountaineer. Nevertheless, I must bestow the teaching. So it's kind of insulting the guy. I had a dream, speaking of dreams of fools, in which I met all 3 of the Three Stooges, in the Curly lineup of the Three Stooges. And Larry and Curly were very approachable and talkative, and Curly was very serious. Mo, I didn't talk to him at all because he just scowled and he seemed like he didn't want anybody to talk to him. Anyway, telling my dreams to you. Not saying you're a fool. Anyway, he says, Dogen says, the thought that practice and experience are not one thing is just the idea of non-Buddhists. So, to put that without the double negative, only non-Buddhists think that practice and experience are 2 different things. I don't like double negatives, and they seem to confuse things, and Dogen was fond of double negatives. Actually, in Japanese, you can get away with it more than you can in English, so that may be why. Anyhow, in the Buddha Dharma, practice and experience are completely the same. Practice now is also practice in the state of experience. Therefore, a beginner's pursuit of the truth is just the whole body of the original state of experience. That's a key line in Dogen. So the beginner's pursuit of the truth is just the whole body of the original experience. And without looking at the Japanese original, I'm pretty sure that this beginner the word that's translated here as beginner is shoshin, is beginner's mind. That Shunryu Suzuki took those two characters apart and made them beginner's mind, but it just means beginner, but it literally translates as beginner and mind. So shoshin, the beginner's mind, is the whole body of the original state of experience. So the first time you do Zazen in your entire life, you're just as enlightened as the Buddha himself. That's Dogen's premise here. I don't know, premise is not the word, but he's sort of laying it down like this is the thing. He's sticking his flag in the sand and saying that's what it is. This is why the Buddhist patriarchs teach in the practical cautions that they have handed down to us not to expect any experience outside of practice. So don't expect something to come from your practice, some kind of state to come from your practice. The practice is the enlightened state that you're looking for. So even if you're doing Zazen and if you feel like oh, this is just nothing and I'm just thinking about donuts and popcorn or whatever it is, random things you're thinking of, no, that is enlightenment itself. Learn to see that as enlightenment. And the reason may be that practice itself is the directly accessible original state of experience. Because practice is just experience, the experience is endless, and because experience is practice, the practice has no beginning. That's nice. I just like that. I'm going to leave that as it is without comment, just pointing it out to you. This is how both the Tathagata Shakyamuni, that's the OG Buddha, the original Buddha, and the Venerable Patriarch Mahakashapa, his first Dharma heir, his student that he gave the whole thing, the whole shebang to when he died, were received and used by the practice that exists in the state of experience. So Shakyamuni and Mahakashapa were used by the practice, not that they used the practice. In Soviet Russia, you use the practice, and the practice, I don't know. I'm not doing the Yakov Smirnov thing very well, but you get it, right? No, you don't, but it doesn't matter. It's a bad joke, and it didn't matter. Okay, here we go. The great Master Bodhidharma, that's the guy who brought Buddhism to China, and Zen Buddhism, and the founding patriarch Daikon Eno is Huineng, were similarly pulled and driven by the practice that exists in the state of experience. The examples of all those who dwelt in and maintained the Buddha Dharma are like this. The practice that is never separate from experience exists already. Having fortunately received the one-to-one transmission of a share of the subtle practice, we who are beginners in pursuing the truth directly possess, in the state without intention, a share of the original practice. That's a long sentence. Dogen was fond of long sentences. But to me, the key thing here, if I was going to go with the way Nishijima Roshi, my teacher, liked to say it, is that state without intention. And he had a big argument with one of his students that's still preserved online, I think somewhere, because it was through his blog, about this idea of the state without intention. Of course, every time if you're going to do something like Zazen, you have some kind of intention. You're thinking you want something out of it. That's fine, but you actually throw away the intention as you practice. So when you're actually practicing, you may have an intention for it, but the intention doesn't matter because you're actually doing it. Same thing with if you're lifting weights to become, a big hunky woman or man or whatever you want to be. The intention of becoming a big hunky human is kind of aside from the point. When you're doing the practice is what it is, and the becoming a big hunky human is another thing entirely. But it's a good analogy because you become the big hunky human through doing the practice, but the practice isn't the end. The practice of lifting weights isn't the means, and becoming a big hunky human isn't the end. These are different kind of states which happen within the linear timeline of the practice, but each lifting of the weights is part of the becoming of the big hunky human. And so you don't kind of this is where diets and exercises fail, is people have a goal for them, and then once they've achieved the goal, then they quit the practice. It's the same thing with Zazen. You achieve the goal, maybe, whatever goal you've set for yourself of enlightenment or whatever. But if you stop doing the practice, it's just as bad as eating Twinkies and chocolate bars all day because you finally lost all the weight that you took, you dieted for 2 years to take off. it's the same thing. It's counterproductive. It's the wrong way to do it. So that's part of the point that he's making. When we forget the subtle practice, original experience has filled our hands. When the body leaves the original experience behind, the subtle practice is operating throughout the body. That's just Dogenese, and I love it, but I'm not going to keep digging into that one. Let me go a little further on with the chapter. Moreover, as I saw with my own eyes in the great Sung China, the Zen monasteries of many districts had all built Zazen halls accommodating 500 or 600 or even 1,000 or 2,000 monks who were encouraged to sit in Zazen day and night. The leader of one such order was a true master who had received the Buddha's mind seal. When I asked him the great intent of Buddha Dharma, I was able to hear the principle that practice and experience are never two stages. So again, he's emphasizing they're not two things. Therefore, in accordance with the teaching of the Buddhist patriarchs and following the way of a true master, he encouraged everyone to pursue the truth in Zazen. He encouraged not only the practitioners in his order, but all noble friends who sought the Dharma, all people who hoped to find true reality in the Buddha Dharma, without choosing between beginners and late learners, without distinction between common people and sacred people. Another long sentence, but that one's not too hard. Have you not heard the words of the ancestral master? This is, again, Nangaku Eijo, who was the student of Daikan Eino, aka Huineng, who said, "It is not that there is no practice and experience, but it can never be tainted." That is the key line that he is referencing here. It's not that there isn't practice and experience, but it can never be tainted. So you can divide it into practice and experience, but the reality of the situation is practice and experience are one. And this was Dogen's great revelation. He had practiced in Japan under a Rinzai teacher, and the teaching he had learned there was that practice was a means to attain experience. So practice, Zazen, was something you did to attain enlightenment. And since he practiced from age 12 to he was about 27 when he first heard Tendo Nyojo, his teacher, who taught him this practice and experiences one kind of thing, he must have had experiences. He was given or offered Dharma transmission, so we can assume that he had some kind of enlightenment experiences. He doesn't write about them, but we can assume that those happened as a result of all that practice, because he was practicing a lot, and nobody practices that much without having some kind of freaky-deaky experiences along the way. But he wasn't satisfied with that, and when he found this teaching that practice and experience are one, that's what he made his life's work, his teaching that. So practice and experience are one. That's the deal with that in a short nutshell. I hope you enjoyed that. I don't know if I made any sense. If I didn't, ask me a question and I'll see if I can clarify it. If you want to send me a donation, though, you can send it to this URL that you're seeing on the screen. You can go to that URL and you'll find links to my Patreon and PayPal thingies, and those are also linked at the bottom below this if you are on YouTube. That is my only way of making a living these days, really. Only, I mean, I get little bits and pieces here and there, but those are my major source of income is your donations. But this is offered for free, so if you don't feel like donating, you don't have to donate. That's fine too, but I appreciate those of you who do donate, because you're keeping me going, and that's great. So we'll see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bisels. Hey, Ziggy, what do you think of my hat? Do you like the hat? Hey, Zig, like my hat? Like my hat?